Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Eagle Show. This is your host, Tony Dodds. To call in, the number is 863-682-1430. That's 863-682-1430. And to contact me at my office, the number there is 863-688-2389. That's 863-688-2389. My office is located at 904 South Missouri Avenue in Lakeland. That's directly behind the old Southside Dry Cleaners that's on South Florida Avenue. Today we have an interesting show because I've actually got two different topics. I'm going to start with one that literally I had to deal with in the last week. And in the second half of the show, we'll try to devote to some current events that are at a national level. But the first part of the show, I wanted to talk about what I consider to be one of the newest scams that I didn't even know was a thing until I had to deal with it. I got a notice in the mail from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, which was an agency created, I think, about 10 years ago. And the whole purpose of that group is to oversee and assist the governor in advancing Florida's economy. One big, small problem, one big, small, get it, is that it's big at a statewide level, but it's a problem is that there's a communication issue between the Department of Economic Opportunity and the Florida Department of Revenue that is a real problem, meaning there is very little communication between the two of them until after a claim has been put in. And to clarify where I'm headed with this, I'm going to date myself a little bit on this, but in the old days, the Florida Department of Revenue dealt with what we called unemployment taxes. And yeah, there's taxes out the wazoo when you own your own business. There's unemployment taxes, there's payroll taxes, your personal property taxes on your property that you've already paid, sales tax on. I mean, when people start asking me why my fees are where they're at, they have clearly no clue of what I have to put out annually just in taxes going out the door to our government for what I get back. And so now that I've said my piece about that part, unemployment tax was basically a form of insurance that they like to call it, where we're paying into it in case we terminate an employee and it's not for good cause. In other words, we're letting them go because we're downsizing, or we let them go for what we think is good cause, but the state doesn't determine it's good cause. I had one particular employee that I don't want to go into too many details on, but because I work in the legal system, she was not playing well in the sandbox with certain other people in the legal community. So I had to get rid of her because it just wasn't working out. She put in for unemployment benefits. I contested it. I lost. They said I should have kept her on as an employee despite the fact it wasn't working out well in my profession. So good cause to the state back then meant theft, repeatedly not showing up for work. You know, if you do it once or twice, I guess it's okay. But if somebody misses for a couple months, then I guess you could terminate them and you might win then. But anyway, that was the old unemployment tax. Well, then they called it or changed its name to reemployment tax because it was going to be a reemployment benefit. It sounded better to call it something it really wasn't. It made it feel better to the people that were receiving it that it was just a temporary benefit until they became reemployed. So we wanted to take away that negative term called unemployment tax and call it a reemployment tax. Well, when they did that, they shifted the responsibility of paying out that money from the Department of Revenue to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Now, keep in mind, the Florida Department of Revenue still collects the tax from me annually. And I say annually, I actually have to fill out a report quarterly to send it in. But generally speaking, by the end of the first quarter, I've paid in 80 to 90% of what I would need to pay for the year. Now it's going to be 100% because of the way the employee pay is at the office. But the first quarter, I'm going to be prepaid. I've got to send in the forms for the rest of the year because I've had nobody that I've terminated in a decade at this point. Now, if somebody leaves voluntarily, they're not going to be eligible to go against my reemployment tax payments, at least the way I understand this. It would have to be if I had terminated their employment or laid them off. So I had had nobody be terminated in a long time. And all of a sudden, earlier this year, I got a notice in the mail that my reemployment tax rate was going up. Now, it didn't go up very much, folks, because I've had no claims for a decade practically. My tax rate was very, very low. And when it went up, the significance of how much it went up was not much. I thought it was related to just needing to get more money back into the fund because of all the problems last year across the state with a lot of the reemployment tax being paid out for people that were either temporarily or permanently laid off from their positions that were receiving those benefits until they could find another job. Turns out I was wrong. I finally got a notice in the mail last week where a person, and I'm going to start naming names on this, whether it's the actual person that put in for it or not, it's really not my problem at this point since I'm the alleged victim on it. And though I didn't have to make a criminal complaint, the complaint has gone through the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. If they choose to do nothing with it other than just take it off my taxes, that's in their discretion. I have nothing I can do about it. But the long and the short of it is I got a notice from them that a person by the name of Griselda Lycia was putting in a claim for unemployment from being laid off from my office. I don't know who Griselda Lycia is. I have never, in my understanding or knowledge, ever met a Griselda Lycia. And so I have no clue who that is. But because the claim was put through and there is a failure to communicate between two governmental agencies, I had to contest it. And the way that you contest it now is you go online. And I challenge anybody in the listening audience to be able to go on to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and figure out how to sign up for their system. Yes, I had to sign up for it because I've never had a claim while they've had this in operation. And so they do at least have a 1-877 number that's right on their website. And so I called that number, and a very, very nice employee walked me through the process of setting up to be able to go online to see how to contest this. And she even assisted with it. And I've got to give her kudos for the patience. If I had to do this last year, it would have been a major problem, though, because of how tied up their whole system was. At least at this point, the system's kind of filtered itself down to these types of claims. I'll go through more of this after the break. You've been listening to the Legal Show on 96.7 FM and 1430 AM. Welcome back to the Legal Show. This is your host, Tony Dodds. To call in, the number is 863-682-1430. That's 863-682-1430. To contact me at my office, the number there is 863-688-2389, 863-688-2389, and my office is located at 904 South Missouri Avenue in Lakeland. We've been talking about this problem that I had to deal with as it would relate to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. And the reality on this is that if I had not caught this in this form letter that comes through, I would not have known there was even an issue. And one department is not talking to the other. Between the issues of COVID and a lot of people being able to apply for unemployment, I think it's created a new window of opportunity for people to go out and try to commit a scam. And they're not applying through this system for very large periods of time that would red flag it. They're saying they were employed for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And so it's one of those things where we're trying to figure out how to deal with it and combat it. I understand we had a caller during the break. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, this is Gordon. I wanted to share with you an encouraging word about the unemployment claim system. You might remember that I had a case in which I felt I was cheated, and I was begging you for help, and actually I was too talkative, and I apologize again. But the long story short is even though they cheated me, they were not loaded in favor of the little guy. They would not at all grant my claim, and if it had been you that was the person I was claiming against, they would have granted you some relief. So I wanted to give that positive word. Plus,
and I'm not saying they're bad people there. The problem is the system's broken.
Yeah,
the problem with it is we've got people that are able to apply for benefits that never even worked for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got no system of checks and balances in place, Gordon, to protect the business owner or the money of the people of the state of Florida that has been paid in. As trivial as the amount is that I've had to pay in the last few years because I've had no claims, I'm still having to pay in. And I don't mind that because there may be a claim someday that gets put through that's legitimate. But at the same time, we don't need all these people committing fraud out there by putting in fraudulent applications, and they start getting money fairly quickly once they've put that application in, especially when one of these claims, and I hadn't got to it yet, was through one of the COVID funds that was set up. I hadn't taken any COVID money, didn't need it. I got through the whole thing without it. I was blessed. I'll be the first to tell you on that. There's been a lot of people that needed it, and they took it. I don't have a problem with that. This was an illegitimate set of claims from two different names. It may have been the same person doing it, but they used two separate names. So the system is set up. It may not be the greatest system. It's got a lot of things that need to be fixed on it.
Yeah, could I briefly just ask you what would be a proposed solution, not only for the state fraud that you outlined, but for some federal issues that I'm not going to mention them. There was excess of port spinning and protection of the grid, but there's some state and federal things that are really bad, and I want to get your thoughts on what can we do as solutions. I'm thinking of us getting together and making a group to contact state and federal lawmakers on advocacy on key issues where 99% of the people agree. So I want a solution. I don't want to just talk a whole bunch. I want
solution is
think?
We need to keep contacting the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity itself and your local state legislators, both the House and Senate in Florida, and tell them there's a broken system in place. They're both going to say this year there's probably little they can do this time because the period of when they meet is very limited. But they need to be notified that there's a problem in this system. They need to be able to have more communication between the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and the Florida Department of Revenue. If their systems are already supposed to be communicating, they're not. There's a problem in it because if they had done anything to check, and this was part of what I was getting ready to go into anyway, so it leads right into it, Gordon. If their systems were tied together, they would have seen that I file quarterly reports that put down the names and social security numbers of my employees. And in neither case did they catch that these people were not on my forms. If they had have seen that, they would have contacted me even sooner and said, wait a minute, did you have an employee down through that time period that you did not list on your form? But they didn't do that. And so that tells me their systems are either not communicating or not connected together, or if they are, there is a huge hole in the system that's not being filled. So the answer is the state Senate and House needs to be talked to, and so does the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. I've already had that discussion with them. They're supposed to be seeing what can be done. The problem is, until a number of people do it, there's not going to be much else that can be done. I hope
it's on my things to do list to get together and have some actual plan. The C.I.A. and the F.B.I. recently, a few decades back, had a lack of communication, and federal lawmakers were supposed to be advocated against and told things by us people, but we didn't speak up. And there's a few other problems. So it's on my things to do list.
Okay.
And I pray, God, that we can actually work together and get our voice loud.
And I appreciate that, Gordon. Thanks a lot for calling in. All righty. So as I was just talking with Gordon about, one of the things that's got to happen is the state's got to be able to fix it. And when I say fix it, it's going to take people from the House and Senate probably pushing that council. It's a bureaucracy, just like any other bureaucracy within the state. And it's got to be dealt with. It is such a problem, apparently, and this is something that I was able to find out once I called in and they helped me through everything. I started looking at the site. When you first go into their website, the first page, the biggest button that you can push on the page is a link to report fraud being committed within the system. Now, that tells me they're already aware there's a problem. Somebody needs to be turning the wheels and greasing it and fixing it. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to fix it based on the types of complaints that are lodged. I've clearly lodged the complaint that I need to there for purposes of being able to try to get mine fixed. And as of later this afternoon, I had no claims still pending against my taxes that I'd paid in because they had already taken them off based on my representation that the people did not work for me. I'm fully aware there's a lot of people out there that try to pay people off the books. They pay them in cash. They don't want to report it. That's not what any of this is about. These were people. The second one's name was Kathy Whelan, Whelan. I have no idea who that person is. To my knowledge, I've never met a Kathy Whelan, and I certainly have never employed a Kathy Whelan. It may not even be a person that exists. It could be a fictitious claim along with this Griselda Lucia that was put through that pours into somebody else's bank account who may be the person actually making the claim, or it could even be somebody that used somebody else's bank account to collect the funds. They went out and took out the money real quick. Good luck in the state being able to trace that. That's why there's got to be a better way of catching it up front, because once that money has left from the coffers of the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, which is basically paying it from the Florida Department of Revenue, good luck in collecting it back. I mean, you may be able to criminally charge somebody out of it, but the long and the short of it is you got to be able to prove they're the ones that did it. And when this stuff is done through internet connections, and that's why I hate some of the developments that we've had. Everybody goes, oh, it's so much better to do stuff over the internet. No, it's not. All you have done is open Pandora's box for a new form of crime in the form of a cyber crime. And we're going to see other stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's because I personally experienced it. But it is just the tip of the iceberg as it would relate to trying to swindle people. If these criminals would put the amount of effort into a legitimate business and a legitimate job as they do into trying to mess over, and I'm using polite terms instead of what I normally would do, the government as well as us, because we're the taxpayers into that, then we would have a whole different system. We probably wouldn't be losing tens of millions of dollars out the window. Because if that's mine, I can only imagine some of the bigger employers and how many claims that have been lodged against them that didn't get caught until well after the fact. I'm small potatoes in the big picture of things. On a positive note, I will tell you that while we've been here on the air, I have received a text message from somebody that I know at Lakeland Police Department, and apparently they want to start an investigation on it. I will talk to them after I get off the air today, but I have already received communication that they wouldn't mind having a little look-see at this to see what they can do with it. So I will be giving them a call probably in my car on my way out of the door later today. So anyway, just so all business owners, small businesses particularly, but even the big businesses, if you have any question, and you should have questions at this point, as to whether any false claims have been made as it would relate to your reemployment tax that you've been paying in, which is filed every year under an RT1. Actually, it's filed every quarter under an RT1. Used to be a UTC-6, I believe, under the unemployment tax numbers. I'm having to throw myself way back in time on that one. If you have any questions about maybe somebody having made an application on it, you need to go get signed up for the system. If you're not signed up, you can call a number to get signed up. You will need your EIN number, which is your federal employee identification number. You will need your state identification number, which is a separate number that you have to have. And the phone number, I'm going to give it to you right on the air, that I use to call, because they are extraordinarily helpful people. You'll need to be, they'll send you a link to your email address, and the phone number to call is 1-877-846-8770. That's 1-877-846-8770. Once you've identified yourself, they've been able to sufficiently figure out that you are who you say you are with all of the identifiers. They will send you a link, and they will help to walk you through the process of being able to set up your own online account to be able to view what's been done. You have been listening to Talk 96.7 FM and 1430 AM, and I've got another hot topic after the break. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Legal Eagle Show. This is your host, Tony Dodds. To call in, the number is 863-682-1430. That's 863-682-1430. To contact me at my office, the number is 863-688-2389. That's 863-688-2389. I know I told you before the break that I was going to go into a new subject, and I'm going to, but I do want to touch base. One of the text messages from the local law enforcement agency is, please follow through with what I just told you, which is go to the website for the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. And if you've got a complaint, fill out the complaint on there, because that will help start the ball rolling so they can put this into a much better perspective. I have a feeling, because they've got such a huge link on the site, that it's turned out to be a major problem statewide that they're having to deal with at this point for people putting in fraudulent claims. And, it's just another way of committing theft, folks, and especially when it's theft of taxpayer dollars, that really irritates me. So that's one of the key aspects, is at least get that far. You can actually call your local law enforcement agencies too. They may not be able to help you as much, but at least they can make sure you're following the steps you need to try to put a damper on this whole practice of what's going on. And maybe they'll fix the system too while they're at it. Now we're going to go into my second topic of the day, which, as many people know, it's a topic that I hold very near and dear to my heart, because it applies to one of our constitutional rights. It's part of the Bill of Rights. It's one that I've talked about on a number of occasions before. It's one of the things I was afraid that this election was going to cause to be a big problem this time through, is gun control. The Democrats in the House have already pushed through 2 bills through the House, because they only need a simple majority there to be able to get something to go to the next level.